Good morning and welcome to our online art lesson. In today's art lesson, we're going to be doing something a little bit different. We are going to be talking about a technique called one-point perspective. One-point perspective is a way of representing something three-dimensional on a two-dimensional surface. In our case, we're representing a three-dimensional farm on a two-dimensional surface, which is paper. So to create this one-point perspective farm drawing, you're going to need three things. You're going to need a piece of paper. You're going to need something to draw with. I'm using a Sharpie, but you can use whatever you happen to have at home. And you're going to need something straight like a ruler. A ruler works best, but you could also use the edge of a book, the edge of a color pencil box. Anything you have that is straight will work, but it must be completely straight. And obviously at the end, if you choose to go in and color, you'll need something to color with. I used a mixture of watercolor and crayons, but you could use whatever you happen to have. So, to create our one-point perspective drawing, our first thing we're going to need to do is find the center of the paper and draw a straight line with our ruler across the paper. See how I'm holding it down with one hand and drawing with the other? There is our first line. This is called the horizon line because here is the ground, here is the sun, here is our horizon line. And now we're going to pick one point. Remember, this is one-point perspective. So here is our one point. Now, this part is where it gets a little bit tricky. We're going to draw the lines that divide up all of our crops in our picture. So to create those lines, everything has to go back to this one point. Remember, one-point perspective. So, if I am drawing my lines, see how it all meets back at this one point? I'm holding it with one hand, drawing, and it hits that one point. Holding it with one hand, drawing with the other, and it hits that one point. So I'm just going to hold it. I'm probably going to do 5 or 6 lines. And I'm making sure it all meets back to that one point. That is super, super important. And this one's probably going to be our last one. And there we go. So I have all of my lines meeting on the horizon line at our one point. Remember, one point perspective. So now it's time to add in our crops. I use different kinds of flowers in my first one. So I have some flowers. I'll show you how to draw these two kinds of flowers. And then I did this sort of shape. I meant to draw kind of a rose, but it turned out more like a cabbage, so I drew them green. So I have some flowers mixed in with some vegetables. You can do whatever kind of crops that you want. You could do watermelon, you could do corn, you could do beans. You could do whatever you want in your crops. But when you draw your crops, here's a little tip to make it look more realistic. Whatever you draw at the bottom is going to be closer to you if you were actually looking at it. So you want those shapes to be bigger. So the first thing I'm going to show you how to draw is my sort of wavy flower. So to draw the wavy flower, you're going to draw sort of like a wavy shape in the center. And then you're going to draw 3 wavy shapes that go outside of it. That's how I draw my wavy flower. Super easy. And I'm just going to keep drawing that wavy flower. But see how I get towards the back? My shapes are getting smaller. This makes it look more realistic. So, bigger in the front, smaller in the back. Now I'm going to draw my daisy. So I start with a little circle, and then I usually stick with 5, but you could do however many will fit, little petals around my flower. And I'm just going to continue that. 3, 4, 5. And again, notice how my shapes are getting smaller as I go back until they get super tiny way at the back here. Remember, bigger at the front, smaller in the back. And now I'm going to draw my cabbage shape. This one's easy. I just drew a circle, curved line in the middle, another curved line, straight line. Super easy. And remember, getting smaller as I go back. So I'm just going to fill in all of my crops. Remember, yours don't have to look exactly like mine. Yours can be whatever you want. You could do a flower farm, fruit farm, vegetable farm, whatever you want to do. So I'm going to quickly fill all this in, and then we'll finish up right up here at the top. Alright, and there are all of my crops in my farm. So remember, bigger at the front, smaller towards the back. So now that I have my crops set up, they're exactly how I want them, they're all in my 1 point perspective, I'm going to add my background. So this is just how I chose to have my background. Your background could look a little different, but all I did was I added a sun that was sort of setting, so you can only see half the sun. I added some clouds. And then I added a little barn. And I didn't get into too much detail on the barn because I wanted my main focus to be on the crops. So all I did was a little house shape and then a few details. And then I added, I'm not a farmer, I don't actually know what this is called, but I added one of those things that stores grain too. So there is my finished 1 point perspective farm drawing. And now if you choose to, you can go in and fill it in with color. So this is my 1 point perspective. Very important that you remember that. First we drew our horizon line, then we added our 1 point. We made all of our straight lines with a ruler go back to that 1 point. We added our crops with our big flowers at the front, smaller flowers at the back, and then we added our background. So as always, make sure you take a picture and send it to me. I'll put my email down below. I would love to see your finished art, and happy creating. I can't wait to see you again.